Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Hermanos. It was on a day like today, but in 1906, that the most sacred story of Mexican football wrote its first chapter. Historia Sagrada started 117 years ago, when Unión Football Club disputed its first football match against the team of Gimnasio Atlético Occidental. Less than 2 years later, in 1908, Unión Football Club changed its official name to Guadalajara Football Club, and then in 1923 to Club Deportivo Guadalajara, the name that still stands today, 100 years later. Why are we known as El Rebaño Sagrado? Why are we known as Las Chivas Rayadas? What was Belgian founder Edgar Everard doing in Mexico? What was he doing in Guadalajara? Stay in to find the answer to all these questions. Stay in to learn more about the sacred history of Las Chivas Rayadas.
Number 1. French department stores. In order to understand the migration of Edgar Everard from Belgium to Guadalajara, it is key to know that during the second half of the 19th century and the first 3 decades of the 20th century, French immigrants arrived to the city of Guadalajara and installed their commercial businesses, evolving from small clothing stores to modern warehouses organized by departments. It was one of these French businessmen who offered a job to Edgar Everard to come work in his textile business in Guadalajara. Everard accepted the job offer and moved from Belgium to Guadalajara in 1904 at the age of 16. Number 2. Edgar Everard, the Orozco brothers, Calixto Gas, and a department store called La Ciudad de México. Edgar Everard was born in 1888 in the city of Bruges in Belgium. From a very young age he started playing football, which was already popular at that time in Europe. He moved to Guadalajara after taking a job in the textile industry and landed to La Perla Tapatía. At a department store called La Ciudad de México, Everard met a French businessman called Calixto Gas, a young merchant who had arrived to Mexico to work in the textile business as part of the French commercial migration to Guadalajara previously explained. Everard and Gas formed a football team and invited 2 of their friends, the Orozco brothers, Gregorio and Rafael, to join in. The football team had the name of Unión Football Club and disputed their first match against the team of Gimnasio Atlético Occidental. The 26th of February of 1908, Unión Football Club officially changed its name to Guadalajara. Number 3. Why do we play in red and white, and the reason behind the Chivas nickname?
Now that we know the story behind the club taking the name of the city, we gotta find out why do we play in red and white, and why do we proudly go behind the nickname of Chivas. Let's start with the red and white. Turns out that during Chivas' early years, back in 1906 and 1907 and the early 1908, the team used to play in white uniform. But in 1908, Belgian founder Edgar Everard decided that the team should play in red and white. This in order to honor the colors of the flag of his city of birth, Bruges, one of the most important cities in Belgium. It can be said that the colors of the flag of the city of Bruges in Belgium inspired the colors of the jersey and the shields of Club Deportivo Guadalajara. Now let's go through the story behind the Chivas nickname, which we probably go by since the 1940s. On the 30th of September 1948, after a match week 2 league match against Tampico, Guadalajara-based newspaper El Informador published the following. They raced and Chivas won by 1-0. The headline was used by the supporters of the city rivals, El Atlas, to make fun of the red and white team. What started as a joke became a sound that pumps with energy up to the point of having 40 million supporters across Mexico and the United States.
4. There was a time when foreign players used to play for the red and white. That's right, Chivermanos. El Guadalajara had foreign players in its squad in the past, concretely between its foundation in 1906 and the creation of the professional league in 1943. In those early days, El Guadalajara played with a mix of Mexican footballers accompanied by Belgians, French and Spanish players. Foreigners played for El Más Querido during the 37 early years after its foundation, when in 1943 the institution decided to only admit Mexican footballers in the squad, a tradition that still stands today after 80 years.
¡Ahí te van, mi Chivas! ¡Te llevo en el corazón, sí, señor!
5. Why are we known as el rebaño sagrado?
It turns out that in January of 1957, a few days after winning our first Liga MX championship, the club received an official blessing coming from the Vatican, specifically from Pope Pius XII. The telegram with the blessing from the Pope is displayed at the official club museum at Estadio Akron.
Chivas remains as the only Mexican team to receive a blessing from the Pope. Number 6. 10 all-time top scorers.
El Guadalajara has been land of fantastic and memorable goal scorers who, with their olfato goleador, have fired up the red and white passions of millions of Chivermanos across generations. Our top 10 all-time goal scorers from 10th to 1st is as follows: Francisco Jara, Javier de la Torre, Ramón Morales, Maximiliano Prieto, Benjamín Galindo, Eduardo de la Torre, Crescencio Gutiérrez, Javier El Cabo Valdivia, Salvador Chava Reyes, and Omar Bravo.
Number 7. Silverware.
Throughout its history, El Guadalajara has won a total of 42 official trophies, 27 of them in the professional era and 15 in the amateur era. Since the professionalization of Mexican football in 1943, same date from which Chivas plays with only Mexican players, El Rebaño has conquered 12 Mexican League championships. 1956-57, 1958-59, 1959-60, 1960-61, 1961-62, 1963-64, 1964-65, 1969-70, 1986-87, Verano 1997, Apertura 2006, and Clausura 2017. 12-time Mexican champions until now. These have been 7 facts that you probably or possibly didn't know of our beloved Rebaño Sagrado, and let it be 117 more!